Welcome back to Paranormally Correct. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I'm going to read to you the regression that I mentioned in another video. That video will be linked, so you can go check it out first, probably. You may want to watch it first, just so you kind of know what's going on. Otherwise, this is going to be kind of weird and confusing. For those of you who have seen that video, here's a little refresher. This is a regression that I did kind of as practice because you all know I used to do the radio show Paranormally Correct, and now I do a new radio show Paranormally Correct, but that's another story for another time. But years and years ago, we had some guests on with related topics to talk about, so me and my co-host wanted to do some research on regression and stuff like that. In short, we did this regression as practice for an upcoming episode, I believe. It's been so many years, but I think that's actually why we did it initially. But it kind of ties into a lot of other things because we were also practicing out-of-body experiences, astral projection, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read that to you. And if you don't remember, this is when I woke up from my regression, this is what I remembered. It was fresh in my mind, and so like as soon as I woke up, I went to my computer and I typed this all out in as much detail as I could remember, which it was actually vivid in my memory, unlike some dreams. And I'm really glad that I did, because if I hadn't gone and typed this out immediately after the regression, there's no way I would remember any of this, because honestly, until I made these videos, I had forgotten, so reading over this has been kind of like a new experience for me all over again. And another thing I probably should mention to you real quick is if you saw the old video I did on this, you're going to notice that this version, I cleaned it up a little bit and tried to make it a little more concise, but I didn't change anything. So nothing is different. It's just maybe reworded to sound a little more clear and concise. So, okay, I'm going to stop rambling, and without further ado, let's read this crazy experience that I had. At the very beginning, when transferring relaxation from one sector of my body to the next, I remembered becoming very scared. It felt like portions of my body had energy surging through them, but at the same time, they began to feel alien, as if my body was a numb shell in which I was not supposed to be. As the man began to count down from 10, I felt sensations across the side of my face, from the outer corners of my eyes toward each side of my head. It was like a pulling sensation. It didn't hurt, but it felt unnatural. The man's voice recited instructions, telling me to imagine myself in the most comfortable chair I could fathom. And the chair was in the middle of a field. The field was atop a hill. He said to look out across the field, that I was supposed to see landscape much like what anyone has ever seen, hills, trees, etc. Instead, I saw a gulf. The hilltop on which my feather bubble hybrid floating chair rested was at the edge of a cliff overlooking what I can only assume was the sea. Erected from the sea were monolithic, jagged rocks. They spanned a great distance, and they were interlaced. They reminded me of the jagged armor that lines the back of dinosaurs. The sky was deep mauve and slightly pink. There was no air, no wind, no heat, no cold. The man instructed me to locate a staircase descending into a field. My staircase was to my right, and descended into nothing. Looking down it, I could only see blue fog which concealed a void. I descended the steps as instructed, but kept looking up to see how far I was from the hilltop, or safety. I became overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. At the bottom, I looked up once again, but the summit was now beyond my sight. As instructed, I followed a path towards a forest. The path narrowed between two towering rock cliffs. The ground was red dirt littered with pebbles and sand. At the end of the path, I reached a forest which felt out of place with the rest of the location. It was as if I were stepping across a dimension. The forest was thick, blue, dark. I couldn't see any light above me in the sky as the man's voice suggested I would. I began to feel immense pressure in my chest, and I was about to cry. I wanted to wake up, but I was so afraid to do so. I reached a path through the woods and followed it to a cabin. The cabin appeared to be a movie prop, a cardboard cutout. It was two-dimensional and very tiny. I was told to enter the front door, but my door was at the very backside left wall of the cabin and was no more than 3 feet tall and 1.5 feet wide. I felt great apprehension about entering, not because I wouldn't fit, but because I was afraid of where it would take me and whether or not I'd be able to leave. Inside, the environment again did not match. The interior of the structure was larger than it appeared from the outside, but not by much. Directly in front of me was a black hole with a hint of a spiral staircase barely visible inside of it. I was told to enter it, though I was so frightened that I wanted to cry. Everything was dark, and I could not see myself entering the hole or descending the stairs. Everything began to spin. It was as if I were tied by my ankles, hanged upside down, and spun with vicious propulsion. I remember losing the man's voice. I could no longer hear him because I was so deep beneath the ground that human contact was now impossible. I suddenly had the feeling that one has when pressing your palm sternly into your closed eyelids. Just darkness, with pulsing white masses. One of the masses seemed to have more shape, almost like a square, so I grabbed it. Everything was spinning, moving. I was lying stationary in the dark. There were shadows moving all around me, but I couldn't decipher what they might be. Suddenly, I was facing forward, looking into a universe of darkness. An array of tiny purple lights erupted from one central point, forming a thin, broad sheet of dots miles away from me. They tilted to the left, becoming almost vertical. I was lying down again, I thought. I opened my eyes to see brick pavement under an overcast light, a damp street, a square street drain. I was crouched on the ground, holding onto someone's leg. I was too scared to let go. I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream. I felt as if I were dying at that very moment. Suddenly I was in the dark again. High above me, a mile perhaps, and to my right I could see a towering object. This object resembled the Space Needle in Seattle until I realized the disc at the top wasn't attached to anything, and what appeared to be structure beneath it was instead smoke and light. The air was filled with smoke, cut sporadically by blades of light that were coming from somewhere above, though I'm not sure where. There were moments beyond this where I felt like I was trying to keep my head turned away, but I don't know from what. I remember seeing a box-like object out of the corner of my eye. Pain and fear had built up and was becoming unbearable. I still wanted to cry, but when I tried to, it was as if I didn't know how. Suddenly, I was standing on a small rural highway, somewhere that resembled Florida. There were vibrant green trees on my left side and rolling green carpets of grass on my right. There wasn't a house or car in sight, but in front of me was a kind-looking older lady, maybe about 73. Her short, boyish haircut was salt and peppered, and she wore glasses. She kept smiling at me, and it made me feel like she loved me. I remember thinking she must be my mother. A blast of white light drowned out everything. My sight, my hearing, my emotions. It was so bright and so white that I became overwhelmed with fear. I just wanted it to stop. Everything began to shake side to side, increasing in speed. I looked for something to hang on to because the shaking scared me. The man's voice screamed, "Awake!" I instantly opened my eyes, not because I was commanded to, but because I felt like a captive squirrel who had finally wiggled free of two grasping hands. Upon opening my eyes and sitting up on the couch, I could feel everything in me shaking, and I still wanted to cry. We've talked a few times on the channel about dreams and nightmares and stuff like that. I'm actually going to make another video about that soon. This wasn't like any dream or nightmare that I've ever had, and I've had some weird nightmares. This was like some sort of, I don't know, I have no idea. I mean, it seemed really real. I know everybody says that about weird dreams and stuff, but it really seemed really, really real. I guess that's really all I can say about it, is it just was so realistic, and it always kind of leaves me speechless when I read this, because I don't really remember any of it now. If it wasn't for having this document, I wouldn't remember any of it at all. I would remember probably that it was weird and that it was kind of scary, but other than that, I don't think I would have any recollection or memory of any of the events in the regression. So, I don't know. If you guys ever try anything like this, do your best to write down the most detailed version of it that you possibly can, like everything you can remember, because I don't know if that's kind of something that comes with the territory when you experience stuff like this. And if you can't write it down, get a recorder, get your phone, the voice recorder on your phone, and just speak it out loud and record it, you know, and that way you'll have some type of documentation of it. Has anybody had an experience like this? Has anybody had past life regression or anything similar? I'd be really curious to know about that. If you have, please do let me know in the comments. I think that's really all I can say about this video. I could probably sit here and ramble forever about it, but I'm going to cut it off there. Be sure to check out the other videos related to this if you haven't already, and please give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Click the subscribe button. Join the Boo Crew. I would really appreciate it. I love every single one of you. And I will be back very soon with yet another awesome spooky paranormal video. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, guys.